Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Founder, the podcast that tells the real stories of the people who make recruitment agency growth possible. I go straight to the source to discover the impact of great strategic partnerships between founders and their leadership teams and uncover why bringing in the right leadership team is crucial for the founder to build the business they want. We discuss what it takes to build a fulfilling career in agency without necessarily being a founder yourself and share the successes of the key people that, alongside the founder, make the agency work. It's unfiltered, honest and unscripted and gives a real insight into the people that make the agency work beyond the founder. So on today's episode of Beyond the Founder, I am absolutely delighted to be welcoming Mike Ames. Now, most people in our industry, or certainly a lot of people, will know who Mike is, but I think today you're going to hear a story that not a lot of people will know. Mike is the founder and owner of Flair Business Growth Consultancy and Recruitment Pioneers, and his story is, in my mind, truly unique. He's one of the only people I know that has truly grown, scaled and exited two separate recruitment businesses and become a really important coach, a fantastic pioneer of the recruitment industry. And he's worked with well over 100 small, high growth recruitment businesses, helping them to grow and scale and achieve what they want to achieve. This is raw, it's open, it's honest. The amount of value and takeaways in this 1 hour, literally, I don't think I've ever witnessed so much information and value add. So I really hope everyone enjoys it. And on that note, we'll hand over to Mike. Mike Ames, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here on the Beyond the Founder podcast. And I think most people, or a lot of people in our industry, will know who you are. But what I wanted to start off with was just if you could give a bit of a high level of yourself and what you're up to nowadays, if that's okay.
Sure, I will. Thanks for having me as well. I've been so looking forward to this. Honestly, I love these discussions where we don't know where it's going to go. I think that's really good. So I've started in recruitment in 1988, October, in fact, 88. Worked for 6 months only, so I was still like a trainee, and then we set up our first recruitment business. Probably should have thought that through at the time, but hey, we went for it. And then built that business up for 10 years and sold it to Modis, which is an American company. They no longer exist. I think they're part of Adecco now. We sold it for £24 million as a headline price. And then I thought that would be me set. But maybe we'll talk about this later. But I had a little incident and my counsellor said, get a job, Michael. So that was my answer. So I got another job with a company called Crimson and with two of the guys that I used to work for before. We grew that, both contract businesses, IT businesses. We grew that and sold that for £15 million in 2017 to Harvey Nash.
Wow.
And that's not confidential information. If you Google Harvey Nash Crimson sale, they put a statement out, so you can just read about it if you want to.
And it was your business, was it?
Yeah,
your business.
Yeah, I owned a third of both of them. So
fantastic, excellent.
So that's me. And then since then, I've been really doing this, which is my way of giving back. And I'm building a legacy business for my kids who are in the business as well. And I love it. I'm never going to stop working, Paul.
Which we'll come on to Flair in a bit, and we'll come on to everything like that later. And just to set some context, so you and I first met 2019. I think it was.
Pre-COVID, I know that.
Pre-COVID it was. And we've been looking, I'd set up an agency with Alex in construction recruitment, and we were looking at scaling that. And I wasn't quite set on the model. And what first attracted me to you was you were doing these video snippets, which were brilliant. They were attentive, they caught your attention and really sort of brought you into our gaze. And there was one video you put out, which was around the death of 360 recruitment. That's not something that nowadays people talk about that much more. But back then, it wasn't really discussed, and certainly by anyone with much credibility, with all due respect. There was people saying it, but not as defined as you were. So I thought, you know what, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And through then you start following. And then we reached out and we went to one of your mastermind classes, which you were running. Yeah, Alex
yes.
And I, and we thought, you know what?
I remember that.
The value there was phenomenal. A group of founders all buzzing with each other. And it was, again, that concept, you were very early onto that. From there, you came into us and we had a day strategy day with you, which again was great. And I've still got so many takeaways from that. And that's how Flair really came to our attention. COVID hit then and things changed slightly. But I just found your story in terms of the credibility of someone having sold two recruitment agencies, built from scratch, the way you managed to achieve that in terms of you had technology that underpinned what you were doing, and then to come on and still have this huge amount of energy to keep doing what you're doing. I just found that incredible. So
yeah, it's interesting you say that, because from the inside of the journey, it didn't look very remarkable, really. I met someone when I was a contractor. He was my agent. He said, come and work for me. I said, all right then, as a recruitment consultant trainee. And then 6 months later.
When is this, Mike?
This was 80. I worked from him from 85 to 87, I think, right, as a contractor. But then in early 88, I think, we were started to talk about going to work for him, because I was fed up of contracting, fed up of IT, really, which is my background. And then he said, well, come and work for me. And I did. And then it just didn't work out for him. I was happy there. But he just said, we should just go.
So what were you recruiting?
IT contractors.
IT contractors.
Yeah, people like me, people like myself. So I knew the market very well.
But they trained you in recruitment, so that was your grounding?
Yeah, well, trained is not the word that you would probably use in the modern term. I didn't go on a training course. But I tell you what he was really good at. They don't do it as much these days, particularly post-COVID. So my training was all on the job. So I sat opposite him in a little room. There were three of us sat in this little room. And he would do something like a telephone call maybe, or a cold call or something. And then he would say to me, how do you think that went? Seemed to go okay. Do you think I got the result I was looking for? I think you did, yeah. Why do you think that happened then? Well, I don't know. Why do you think I said this? I don't know. Is it because of that? Yeah. And that was when I said that. So his coaching was all about asking questions. He never said, oh, do this, do that, or do the other. Yeah, and then I would do it. And he would say, how do you think that went? Not very well, Mike, actually.
But you learn.
Yeah, because it just made me think, well, why? What did you say that didn't work? Well, I said, yeah. So if you just said this, do you think you'd have reacted differently? Yeah, probably would. Right, next time do that then. And that's how I learned, really. And I learned until he died, because he was killed in a car accident in November the 6th, 1990. And it was a very odd time, because he was a friend. We'd worked together for a long time when I was a contractor. And then he was my business partner. He'd got a young family, and he was just taken from us like instantly. And so I had to take over the business and have no clue what I was doing. The first decision I made on that first morning, the first decision I made was to collect stamps for charity, because that's a decision I felt I could make.
So you've got to deal with the fact that you're now a business owner. Let's just put that aside. But one of your closest friends has all of a sudden passed away. That responsibility. So you're processing the emotional.
Oh yeah. And the press were all over us, telling lies to get stories about him so they could publish it in the newspaper and everything. And I thought I was literally going to lose everything.
And how big? So the business was at what size?
Oh, I had probably 8 or 9 people by then, I think, probably. And we were turning over, I don't know, maybe a couple of mil or something. It wasn't very big, but he did everything. He'd been in recruitment for 8 years, and he understood that. And his family had been in business, so he kind of understood how business worked. I knew nothing, and I didn't expect to have to know anything. My thing was new business.
So you were bringing in, but you weren't even billing. You as in billing.
Yeah, I was billing by then. So the first year, so the rest of 1989, we set up in April 89. The rest of that year, I went back to be a contractor in IT to bring the money in. And our other partner, he was contracting, and we paid for our third partner to be in the office. So we all got paid 2 bob and a conker, like £1,000 a month, I think, or something. I can't remember what it was. Very small amounts of money, just so that we could pay for him to build this business up. Wow. He couldn't do anything for 6 months, obviously. So for that 6 months, he was just keeping in touch with people, with the contractors and with the clients as well. And then after that, we went, and I came in the Christmas of 89. Worked with him for 11 months, and then he was killed. So it was horrendous, really. But mostly it was the fear, because I couldn't let anyone see that I was vulnerable, because, it's a vicious market now, but it was just as bad then. The competition would have been honest, and they were to a certain extent, because they thought we'd fold. So I was determined not to let that happen.
So was that your driving force? So did that drive you on in a lot of ways?
A combination of things, really. I didn't want to let Mike down. He'd made a lot of sacrifices to set this business up. He'd now got a widow. He hadn't got the right insurances in place, so we had to continue paying his wages to her, else she's got no money coming in. So, but we've got nobody there to do the job. We were paying the money out, but that was it, really. So It was tough. And also, I didn't want to see our previous business, bless their hearts, who I thought in my paranoia that they were out to get us, and they really weren't. They were just doing what they do, I suppose. But there's no way that I was going to watch them satisfaction on their faces as we failed. And also, there was no way I was going to move back in with my mother-in-law if we lost the house. That's not even a joke, right? That is the truth, because my wife said, well, if it all goes, we've got to go back. We live with mum and dad. Oh, my God, well, I'll just work hard. And what I did was, I do what I think most people do when they're in that situation. I threw time at it.
Yeah.
I just worked and worked and worked and worked, which ultimately led to a little mini breakdown, weirdly.
Okay.
And that was the...
What are we talking about here? How long into that?
Okay, so this happened in early 92. So obviously in 1990. 91 was a crazy year. I can't remember anything. Don't know where I went or what I did or anything. No recollection. I do remember that I did some things I wish I hadn't, and said some things I wish I hadn't, actually. But nonetheless, that was the thing, right? So, but then 92... we were doing about 4.5 million, I think, turnover.
So it was yourself, your business partner.
And by now we had, because we used to employ permanent contractors as well. Yeah. We had a couple of people in the office. We'd probably, I'm only guessing now, maybe 12 people, something like that.
It's a decent business.
Decent sized business. And I did what I see a lot of founders doing. I built a business around me instead of building a business that didn't need me. Massive difference between those two. To begin with, I think it was our salvation, because I just made decisions and got things done quickly. But pretty soon you become a blocker, a bottleneck, because everything goes through you. Every decision made is made with you in as part of that process. Well, of course, you get to business to a certain size. That's not acceptable. I was working all the hours that God sends. I mean, peaked 80, 85 hours some weeks, including weekends, of course. And what happened was we had, well, actually 2 or 3 things happened in the space of a couple of weeks. The first thing that happened was my business partner, the remaining one, said to me, we're not going to grow this year, which I already knew, right? But he'd got the figures. Said, I don't think we're going to grow. In the end, I think we grew by 250 grand or something, so nothing in contract terms. The second thing was I was just completely maxed out. So it's like, okay, I accept that. But he was saying it to me in a nice way. What are you going to do about it? Because I'm in charge of sales, right? I don't know, because I can't work any harder, because we're not scalable. And then I had this little breakdown. And what happened was our office was in Henley in Arden, and I lived in Staffordshire. So it was about an hour and 20 minutes drive in rush hour. So we used to leave it quite late, because then it was probably 45, 50 minutes to get home. And have you ever had one of those weeks, right, where you're buzzing? You've had some ups and some downs, right? And the excitement and the adrenaline is pumping through you. And I was buzzing, right, but knackered. Kids hadn't seen me all week.
How old are the kids at this point?
Oh, Kirsty would have been 4, Pete was probably 5 or 6.
Okay,
Tom was
so you're sacrificing a lot,
family.
Not seeing your family as much. And
too much.
Yeah.
Sacrificed too much. It wasn't necessary what I did. Anyway, so I was driving home, and you know that thing where all I wanted was a bucket of wine and some trashy TV. Yeah. That's what I wanted.
Know it well. Yeah.
I come around the corner, and my wife had kept the children up because they hadn't seen me all week. So their bedroom light isn't on. So do you know what I do? I park the car and wait for them to go to bed. Can you imagine doing that with your children? I couldn't face them leaping over me. So I waited. I was fine with this at the time. I waited. They went to bed, light came on. Waited 10 minutes, went in. But because they were still awake, because Barbara had told them that Dad's coming in soon. So I come downstairs, Dad. So, oh, boys. Went upstairs, read them a story, came downstairs and collapsed in a big teary mess. It's like everything could come at once, right? Everything. And I can, if I think about that too deeply, it makes me cry.
I can almost
even
see it.
now.
Yeah,
I'll go, right? So I'm not going to do that. But anyway, my wife said, look, she said, you know, this has gone on. You know, if you don't fix it, I'm going to fix it. And I knew what that meant. And so I can't remember the weekend, but I do remember being very confused and very lost and vulnerable. I didn't know what to do. And here's the thing: sometimes fate intervenes. On the Monday, my other business partner, Andrew, the one that did the accounts and what have you, when I came into work, he's waving this piece of paper at me. And it's an invitation to an event at Warwick University run by the DTI, Department of Trade and Industry. It's free. We go along, and it's all about growth and marketing and sales, right? Now, normally, I'm Mr. Billy Big Bollocks. There's no way I'd go to that. I don't need that. I've got a £5 million business and I'm the guy, right? But I said, yeah, let's go to that. And years later, Andrew told me that that's the only time I've ever surprised him in business, because he did not see that one coming, because he didn't think I'd go.
If it hadn't have happened on the weekend, you probably wouldn't have.
Exactly. Quite so. Kismet, fate.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I went. He didn't go in the end. He couldn't go for the date it was. I went. And it was brilliant. I'd never been to anything like that before. Never been to seminars or anything. Didn't need that. And I went, and there was a number of people speaking. There was one guy, I think his name was Don Black. It stuck in my mind. And he stood up and did a talk, what we would now talk about scalable businesses. But that wasn't
But this is 1990, whatever.
1992.
Yeah.
In the early part of 1992, in the spring. But he used words which were different to that, but we would be talking about scalability now.
Mm-hmm.
And he put a slide up, and he was saying things like, does everything come through you? Do you work long hours? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel stressed?
Tick,
right?
tick, tick, tick.
And I look around and everybody's going tick, tick, tick. And I can see this is resonating with me big style. He said, well, you're not organized in the right way. And it was he that said, you built a business around you. You should build a business that doesn't need you. That's what you should do. It's like, oh, okay.
Epiphany.
Now,
Wow.
ka-ching moment. Yeah, it was an actual ka-ching moment. In coaching, they call it a seminal moment. It's a time where you think direction changes, man, right? So I was the first up at the end, and to see this guy. And the offer was that the DTI would pay for half of a consultant, provided it was a registered consultant with the DTI.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we got a lady in, and she was brilliant. She was absolutely outstanding. And she was with us, I think, about 20 months. I can't remember exactly. And when I look back, the things she actually told us to do, she wasn't a recruiter or anything. They weren't earth-shatteringly relevant. But what she did do was she stopped us thinking like recruiters who owned a business and made us think like business owners that did recruitment. It doesn't sound like there's a big difference between those two. It's a massive
Huge difference.
Huge, right?
Remember one of the first things you said when you came to our strategy day was, the challenge you're going to have is you're going to struggle to find people as good as you. You need to switch your mindset, exactly as you've just said there. So flip it on its head and line your expectations to who you're going to bring in, but build the business so it doesn't need you, not around you, or else you'll never scale.
That's exactly right. But it's difficult for recruiters, because the very things that makes a recruiter good, that tenacity, that immediacy, let's get something on the board this week, next month, that there's a transactional element to it. You don't hang about, just make a decision and go. Those are all the things that you need to make a great recruiter. They're the opposite you need to be a business owner. It's about strategy. It's about the longer term. It's about looking up and out, not just looking down and in all the time. And so this is completely alien to me. I didn't do plans. I didn't understand how to delegate. I didn't understand team dynamics. I didn't understand the difference between tactical and strategic BD. I didn't understand about marketing. None of these things, because I went out there, built my network and monetized it. And that's great, but it's not enough. Yeah. It's not enough. It's not scalable. And so what she taught us, and I could do a whole podcast on that alone, really. She made us think about the team. She made us change the way in which we managed and delegated. She changed the way in which we thought, definitely, the both of us. And I think that had the biggest impact on me, because I was the recruiter, Andrew was the back office. But I changed the way in which I thought 100%. And I realized I needed to get other people to do the work. And I couldn't make them be me. You know what I mean? They're not going to be me.
You can't replicate you.
No, it's wrong. And in a lot of cases, I don't know whether you know what a standard distribution curve is. Kind of goes like that.
Yeah.
It's a bell curve, right? Yeah, right. So it applies to any big group of people or anything, really. So why wouldn't it apply to recruiters? Well, it does. So you've got 15% of the recruiters are overachievers, 15% are underachievers, 25% above average, 25% below average, 20% average. Bell curve, right? Yeah. So the vast majority of recruiters are average.
Yeah.
They have to be, right? And many of the really high achievers are either terribly well looked after by the companies that employ them, or they own their own businesses, or they're going to own their own businesses pretty soon afterwards, right? Most of the people I talk to were somebody else's high biller, right?
Absolutely.
So you've got to build a business where average people can deliver exceptional results. That's the mantra. That's what you have to do.
I love that.
Don't believe that it's about hiring big billers, because you won't find them, and chances are you won't keep them. And so then you become a yo-yo company. Your revenues go up when they're there, when they leave, they come down again. And yo-yo companies in recruitment is almost a proverb now. It's so common. So you build a business where average people who have got a high level of loyalty, a recognition of their weaknesses, can do great things. They'll stay longer, and a stable team will always make more money than a volatile team of high billers and then no high billers. You will always make more money with average people if you do it properly. Consistently, yeah. If you can keep a team together. You're looking for a turnover of between 3 and 5% a year, whereas a lot of people, it's like 30, 40%. Some of the big companies, it's massive. Not for the top people, mind. Their turnover in the top people in these big agencies is very small, but below they're coming and going. But because they're so strongly proceduralized and the management is the way it is, it doesn't make any difference at all. But in smaller businesses, it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we were talking before we started recording this about networks. Well, if someone leaves, their network goes with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they're a big biller, chances are they've got a strong network. That opportunity to monetize disappears out the door when they go. So you can't build a business that depends upon it.
So how do you do that then? So you've got this business, you've had this epiphany, you've got this coach in, and she's been phenomenal for you. So you set about totally restructuring the business with the idea to then scale it and sell it? Or?
Yes, we'd always wanted to sell it, because in our naivety we thought that's what you did. I mean, it's probably 0.2% of recruitment companies every year get sold.
Yeah.
Tiny. And it's not even that, really. There's a list. If anybody wants this, if you reach out to me, I can send it to you. There's a checklist, 12 ticks. If you tick all boxes, you're going to sell your business. If you don't, then you almost certainly won't, right? So it's not even where you get to a certain size. No, if you're a certain type of business, the chances of selling for a lot of money is pretty slim. So we'd always wanted to sell, and we were lucky because we'd got contract business, which is one of the boxes. It was white collar, so the fees were quite hard. We got a really good client estate.
It's all in technology.
All tech, all IT, yeah, all recruitment. And we'd started in the mid-90s. We were one of the first companies to do RPO, or MSP as it was.
Yeah.
For Cadbury's, we did it for first, and then we took in 1 year, because no one was doing it, so every time I pitched, I won it.
Yeah.
Orange, Pearl Assurance, Massey Ferguson, Cadbury's, all of these companies, Severn Trent Water. It's like, well, look, we'll do all the recruitment for you and handle the agencies. Will you? Yeah, just pay us. Where do I sign? It's like, it was easy. Right?
Very real foresight.
For sure. Well, when the Americans came to buy us, that was the reason they were attracted originally, because we were doing that and no one else was. I think there were companies in London doing it, but no one was doing it nationally. And then we also set up a value-added business. We did project work and support work. Project work is a mistake, because some months you make huge amounts of money, and then some months you lose huge amounts of money. But support work is just where they sign you up for 3 years to look after their systems.
Recurring revenue,
And I clocked onto that. And so that was useful as well. But so we'd got some substance to the business. We weren't just putting a bum on a seat.
And how long, what time scale and what had you got to size-wise in terms of revenue and headcount?
Mid-90s, it would have been, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s mil, I would say, somewhere in that neck of the woods. When we sold it, it was 40 million turnover. That was in 98, just shy of 40 million, 39. Something.
How old were you at that point? What?
38.
38. Kids are now probably 10, 12.
Yeah, 14. About that kind of age. Yeah.
So you're 38. You've worked hard. You've made lots of sacrifices, but you've got the direction. You understand it. You know what good looks like, and you've built this great business. You then sell it. And was that an earn-out situation?
We did, yeah.
So you know it's coming. You're earning out, but you're really young. So
I'd intended to stay with them, but the dot-com boom happened, and the IT market, and coupled with post-millennial. So everyone was spending money hand over fist for millennial bug.
Yeah.
We made fortunes. The deals that we got, it was a license to print money. But the trouble was they were spending money out of next year's budget. So 1999, no one's spending money anymore. The Americans held me personally responsible for this situation. It's like, I don't know what I can do, really. So we got earn-out for the first 2 years, but we didn't get any for the third. And when I knew that there was going to be no more money, I said, look, I want to go. And they said, we'd like you to go because we want to restructure it. So I left and didn't do anything for a while. my business partner, Andrew, they didn't want him because they'd got an accounts function in England. So they were just going to roll everything down there. And he wanted to go. He didn't, and he hasn't worked since, actually. This was 98, he left. And saw him for lunch last week, and he's just happy as Larry. And I wanted his life because I was so miserable working for them. And it wasn't their fault. I'm not being critical of them. But the situation I was in, I was so miserable that I hankered after this world. He bought this place in Spain, and he got a farm with some sheep. I don't even like sheep. Right, but I wanted that life, really. Then I got it, and it was horrendous. So within 3 months, I'd spiraled down. I was depressed. I had to get a counsellor to help me because I was bereft. In those days, I had so little to do because my wife had still got young children and a house to run and a dog and all these different things. So if you'd have said to me, do you want to play golf on Tuesday? I said, well, no, because I'm having my hair cut. So I would never do two things in a day. Right.
That was your day. That was your thing.
I'm done my haircut on Tuesday, so I'm not playing golf that day. I'll play golf another day, spread it out, right? I had a binge where I watched all the Star Wars movies that were on Sky at the time, like about once a week. I watched them all because it's like a way to fill a morning to do. Anyway, cut a long story short, counsellor is a good counsellor. She was very good with me, and she made me do all sorts of things. I kept a journal, which I still keep to this day, various other things. And the last session, she said, Michael, I think I can tell you what you need to do, which, it's not something they always do. She said, get a job, Michael, just get a job, you'll be fine. And pretty much the same time, a couple of the guys that worked for me at Software Knowledge came to see me and said, look, we're thinking of doing this thing. Would you like to come in? So they came to my house, I remember, and we were sitting in the living room. By now, Mrs. Ames is saying, look, you better get a job because
you're driving me
damn, you're driving me insane, right? So these guys come, and inside they're offering me this job, and inside I'm going, yes, but I'm playing it cool. Yeah, that's right. So Mrs. Ames says, fantastic, you can start Monday, I'll go and get the champagne. So that kind of burst my bubble a little bit. Yeah. But I was pleased to get back in. I had to wait for 12 months, well, about 8 months, I think, before I could start with them. And then it was Crimson, and that was a different beast, really.
It's funny, isn't it? I say this a lot because I speak to a lot of people, and you ask them what their why is, what the plan is, or where they want to be, and it typically is, well, I want to retire at whatever, 50. Why?
Big mistake.
What are you going to do? And intrinsically, what got you there doesn't go. Whatever's in you to get you to that point, some people will be able to fill their time and whatnot, but the majority of people I speak to that do it will have to go again somehow because they need to be involved. They need the mental stimulation to do it.
And I think the second time around isn't the same. So with Crimson, the first few years I was setting up and it was fine. Then I realised why I'd wanted to sell the business in the first place because I was fed up of recruitment, basically. Yeah. And I didn't want to be involved in it anymore. So I started just helping. One of my clients actually said, I really like the way in which you're organised. Can you come and talk to my management team? It was a car company. She says, okay then. And I really liked it. They liked it. The things I told them seemed to have an effect. And he rang me a few weeks later and said, oh, it's really changed the way in which they see the world. I didn't charge or anything. I just did it as a favour to him, And I thought there could be something in this. And then I went on a coaching course offered by a dental coach. He's still going, right? And it was brilliant. I went there every 3 months and sat with all these dentists, and he went through these business things, which applied to me just as much as they did to dentists. And I looked forward to it. I looked forward to meeting people and just coming away all buzzing with energy and ideas. And I think I could do that. So that was about 2006, I think. So we launched our first Flare program about 2005, 2006, somewhere in that neck of the woods. And it was just business, because I didn't want to do anything with recruitment. So it was just business. I got business people in, and we did all sorts of stuff, and I loved it for a while. But then gradually just got dragged back into recruitment, really, because it's what I know. And I love it. I just don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. I love the people.
How big is Crimson at this point then?
I don't know. So probably 10, 12 mil, I suppose.
Fine. So you've grown it again. I mean, you've done...
Well, I'm going to say this now. It was the guys that did it.
Okay.
Right? I contributed my contribution, but the guys did it. Rob Malaband and Simon Shave. They were the guys that built that business, and they deserve all the credit for it. So then I left them in 2010 and became a sleeping partner. So I swapped a few of my shares for all the goodwill and the time and money I'd spent building Flare up. I didn't think it was fair that they paid for all of that, and I just took it.
Yes. So a lot about you as well.
It was the right thing to do, and I felt good about that. And then we sold that in 2017 to Harvey Nash. They took it. I think they wanted, we were by then a Microsoft Gold partner.
Okay.
So I think they wanted that more than anything. They got a big recruitment arm. Our recruitment arm was tiny in comparison to them, but we made a lot of money.
And what was it? It was contract, permanent, and
we didn't do much perm really.
No,
Never done
full
much
contract.
perm really. The odd bits here and there. In fact, I think by then they had a perm team. I wasn't involved in the day-to-day by then. I think they had a perm team. It was contract mainly. And we did a lot of big development work as a Microsoft Gold partner. We did a lot of work there.
So you've been through 2 exits then. This one would have been easier to extract yourself from because you were asleep.
That was easy,
anyway,
yeah. I didn't even go to the sale meeting.
Okay.
The first one, I went down to London and we stayed up all night signing papers and, there's a problem, go and sit over there while we talk to the lawyers, come back in again and carry on signing. And then we had champagne and everything.
That's a nice phone call to get though, isn't it? When it's
yeah, but I was in Spain actually. We got a house in Spain and I was there and I got a message from the guy who'd sold the first business. Mark Asplin, his name was. He used to work for KPMG. And he said, so you've sold. Great news. Good price. Well, they'd made us sign this draconian NDA that if we said anything to anybody, they could come around and burn our house down, and that was okay, right? And then they just put everything on the internet. It's like bizarre. He'd found it.
Wow.
And he'd run me. So I'd given power of attorney to one of the partners to sign for me. And they said, yeah, it was easy. Just went in, we did this, that, and the other, signed and done. And that was that, really. Next thing I know, the money's in the bank. But I think it wasn't quite the same for me because of the first time around, really. And you think you've learnt so much and you won't make mistakes. You just make a whole new set of mistakes. That's what you do.
And keep learning.
Yeah, you keep learning. You never stop. Do you know what, though? It's an interesting thing. A lot of people engage with me because of that experience. And it's right in a sense because you can't learn that. You have to experience it. You can't learn growing and scaling a business and going through transition points in a business. There are certain T points that you need to transition. You can't learn that in a book. And few people teach it. You have to experience it. But in terms of business, I've learned more since I've been working with, I've done over 100 private client projects, which are bigger projects.
When you say private clients, what do you mean?
That's it's one-to-one with me.
Recruitment agencies?
Yeah, all recruitment. 90% recruitment agencies.
And what sort of typical size would they be?
They vary, really. Normally they're like between 10 and 30, normally. Yeah. Because they're going through, there's those true transition points that we talked about. The first transition point is when you hire your first person. Yeah. You need to change then. It's no longer just you, it's you and somebody else, right? Your second transition point is around about 8 to 10 people, roughly. And you need to change the way in which the business runs then as well, because you no longer can manage in the way that you managed before, right? Because the team is too big. The third transition point is between 20 and 30 people. And then you need to formalize up in lots of spaces. You need to, again, reduce dependency on key people. You need to change from a management team into a nascent leadership team. There's a bunch of things you need to do. And so that's normally when I get asked to work with people because things have happened in the business which clearly show that they haven't transitioned.
Right.
So they're running hotter than they should be, really, and you need to change.
And so this is different. It feels very different when you're explaining it rather than the first sale, because what I'm taking is that you've got flair. So you've got that passion project, you've got that next thing that you actually really want to do, that you can take on and move forward. Is that how it?
Very much so, Paul, because for starters, it's a family business, as you well know.
And I can say, having been through a client of flair, but also knowing Pete and Kirsty, it's the way you handle it and the way you work together. I work for a family business. That's how when I started my career, that. Very different experience. Brilliant, but very different experience. And the way you guys work together in the chemistry, if I can have that with my kids, I've won.
I love it. And my wife probably would take a different view. You should interview her and see what she thinks. But I think there's... that's going to go for 10 now.
Today's episode is proudly brought to you by our sponsors, Coral Coach. So, do you get stressed by spiky revenue patterns? Want to offer your clients more, to create forecastable cash flow to cover operating costs, and to build the ultimate asset? Well, Coral Coach are a coaching company with a difference. The leaders also run their own highly successful contract business, and they have captured their success formula and turned it into a hands-on, simple coaching program. Working with them, you'll get real results in real time, and a recruiter on their current program filled 6 permanent vacancies and 1 contract vacancy in their first week. They're currently offering 2024 prices for their 2025 programs, and spaces are going fast. So please reach out direct for a discovery call, quoting BTF10 for a 10% discount.
Should we just wait for that to finish? Oh no, it's flipping well finished after 2. Sorry about that. I'll restart that again. So having a family business has its challenges. Mrs. Ames would explain that to you. You should interview her on this podcast, actually, Paul. But I think there's an element of trust there, and we know each other, and we know we're doing what's best for each other. There's no politics. Well, there is politics to a certain extent, weirdly, but they're family politics, weirdly, that seep into business. But this is a legacy business now. In the past, I've grown businesses to sell them and make money. I'm not doing that now. I own hardly any shares. I kept a few. Well, why wouldn't I? But the kids own the shares, really, and I'm building a legacy business for them. I want a business that they can operate very efficiently without me, which is what we're building at the moment. So my private client practice is one thing. This is a separate brand called Recruitment Pioneers, and that's where all the content comes out that we do, like the show that we do every couple of times a month, and the content that we produce, and so on and so forth. So it does feel to me like a passion project. It feels to me as though I'm doing something that matters. I know, doesn't that sound cliche, Paul?
It doesn't. And it does, because one of the biggest things that I took away, I still remember 3 or 4 real key takeaways that I actually implemented and even live by to this day from our one-to-one session that day, the strategy day we had. Not once did I feel under pressure. Not once was it pushy. Not once were you aiming for more. It was finding out about us and adding value. And you can't do that unless you're actually passionate about what and adding value.
I think that's true. I think one of the things I learned a lot from the short time I worked with my business partner that died. And one of the things he used to say, it's the client's agenda, it's the client's timetable, it's the client's decision. And we don't sell to anybody, they buy from us. And I really like that mentality, is that, all of us get a bit pushy because we get enthusiastic about, we just buy this, you need it, and we have to suppress that because people will buy when they're ready. Your job is to communicate and, as you say, add value. That's why Flair and the Recruitment Pioneers as well is built on content. We produce a lot of content for people for free.
So we'll talk about Recruitment Pioneers in a second, but I'd be interested to hear, and I think people would be interested to hear, you talk around transition points, you talk around, and there's a saying that the first person in will have a totally different experience to the 15th person in.
Very much so, yeah.
And it becomes about process as opposed to people and your infrastructure and whatnot. 2 things I'd ask you is, first of all, what do you look for? Is there a typical trait you look for in someone and you say, they're going to do well, they're going to be able to make these transitions because of who they are and how they are? And so can you identify that in people quite quickly? And what
in terms of a business, there are things that we look for. Change takes time. It takes time, your time, to invest in your business to change things, but it takes elapsed time as well. It takes a number of months. And when people come and they say, oh no, I want to do this in 3 months, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen, mate. No, it's probably going to take at least twice as long as you think.
Is that because they've got to continue BAU as well as making the transition?
I think there's a number of reasons. Yes, you've got to run a business. Unless you've positioned yourself where you've got no responsibility in your business, which the reason they're coming to us is that is not the case. And also, I think the change is hard because it's new. When you learn something new, no matter what it is, you're a bit clumsy and a bit awkward to begin with. You're unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, unconsciously competent, consciously competent, right? Whatever it is, I get the wrong way around. But you get to the stage where you just do it. Well, that comes with practice and help and failure and learning and all that sort of stuff. And that's blooming hard. That is blooming hard. And I don't think people like it. They just want it to go smooth. Plus the fact recruiters are transactional. So they're used to things happening real quick, very quickly. Yeah. We've got a course that we built in COVID when we first started to go online. And it's called Network 101. And it was designed to show recruiters how to build and monetize networks. Nobody wanted it.
Really?
Nobody wanted it. We sell it now to lawyers and accountants because they get it.
Wow.
Right? I know, because it takes too long. When you're talking about building a network, to build a strong network really is at least 18 months to begin to get things in place. At least. And then probably another 18 months on top of that to start to see some real benefit coming from it. 18 days is the limit of recruiters' things. So
we had this conversation off camera earlier on, and I was staggered by the fact that you were saying the majority of people you want don't invest in building the relationship properly. And I said, I think probably about 50 to 60% of my time is actually adding value for things that I'm probably going to get nothing back from. And I don't look at it like that. It's authentically, you want to add value and help people, and that comes back round over time. But if you're expecting an immediate return on that sort of thing, it's virtually...
Well, there's a couple of things about that. I think you're right, actually. I think you're very right with that. I think, first of all, we build businesses that encourages short-term behaviour, because we reward people on commission at the end of the month. We pay low base salaries and high commissions. It's just desperately wrong. You pay high base salaries and get people that want to work and get paid. And then the commission or bonus or whatever it is tops it up really every quarter or something. Pay people a wage they can live on, for goodness sakes. You're not going to get the big shoot from the hip billers, but you don't want them anyway. So who cares really? You're going to get people that want to get paid a wage and do their work for it, and they like the environment they're in. So we build this environment where people are encouraged to be very short term, and then we expect them to be long term. Build a relationship takes 18 months. No chance, mate. Yeah, I'll do that.
I'll be sacked if I don't hit my
targets.
targets.
I've got to hit my target, mate, because I might get 3 months grace if I don't. So no, that's the first thing. I said there's no training for it. You know, when the reason we did Network 101, which by the way, we don't sell now, so don't contact me about that. But the reason we did Network 101 was because there's nothing else out there.
Yeah.
You Google relationship training, there is nothing. If you do that, what you get is training to build relationships with the opposite sex or the same sex, if that's your bag. So, but it's about relationships.
Dating websites.
Yeah, right. That's it. That's about No. This is about business, to build and monetize a business relationship. And it's a shame because that's the thing that builds empires. And I'll tell you why I think that's happened. Because from 2010, post the bust there that we had, to 2022/3 was the golden time in recruitment. It will be known as that, I feel. The best period of time in my experience from 1988 and whenever I started. And so anyone could make money then, really. I came to work for you on a Monday morning. By Wednesday, I'll be working on a vacancy I'd found, right? So it doesn't take much. You just ring round, send some CVs out, something's going to happen. Well, those days are gone.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're coming back anytime soon. I don't think next year is going to be great. Don't think it's going to be a disaster. Well, who knows? I see inflation is going up, and unemployment will go up. So who knows? But I don't think it'll be a disaster. It's not going to be the good times. So you have to work for your money now. You have to build trust, build affinity, build rapport, build relationships, and demonstrate your value. Whereas before, got a CV, that's good enough. Or make a nice call and be a bit of a cheeky chappy, get the deal. No longer the way.
I agree, totally agree with that.
You have to, and that's the difference between tactical and strategic BD.
I think ironically now, the people that have built the network will be the value, because technology will take over the transactional side of it. So you will be, the value will be in your strategic side and your relationship in your network.
Because the machines can't have relationships.
No, and they can't, and they don't have your network. And it's whoever's got the ear and whoever's got...
Well, there's a vulnerability there, weirdly, for recruitment owners, because like we said before, if you encourage people to build big networks and they go, their network goes with them. So my advice is when you build a business, yes, you must get them to build networks and help to monetize that, but you must build dependency in them as well. They must depend upon you for their success, the business, the infrastructure that they're in.
And how would you say to that? How would you do that?
Mostly driven around tools. I don't mean software tools, by the way. Mostly driven about tools. So what a tool will do, whether it's in the workshop or the kitchen or the business office, is it simplifies, speeds up and standardizes any task that it's given, right? Any tool that you want, whether it's a lawnmower or a food blender or whatever, right? So what that does is de-skill things. So I can produce things in my workshop at home with my electric tools that I have, which I could never do with a handsaw, right? Because it makes it easier, right? So what you do is you stock up your business with tools, these things that make it easier for people to do things. I can give you some examples if you like, but ostensibly, then you train people to use the tools. And if they leave, they haven't got the same tools, so their performance drops. And they know that they're dependent on it. The other thing is not to have 360s, because they can do everything. They're the real deal. You just want someone that can do this. So they depend on this person to do that. They do that, and then somebody else does this. So if they leave, unless the whole team leaves, they're again leaving without the tools and only half the job.
So they slot into a perfect system and do exceptionally well with you, but if they go somewhere else, they're not going to have that system.
Exactly.
And they're not going to perform.
Yeah, quite
well.
So
you're both getting something.
When as a business owner, it's not just about building high profit and valuable businesses. It is about that, of course. But it's also about building safe businesses. And safe is something that we haven't thought of, certainly from 2010, because everything's safe. You can get some more business if you want it. But safe is about having enough money in the bank. So if things do tighten up a little bit, you're cool. You can just get through it. Safe is having a really balanced client estate, not just 2 or 3 big clients, but a proper thought out client estate. So you lose a couple of clients, no biggie. Safe is not having a key person dependence. So if Paul leaves, I'm in trouble because he does all of this, that, and the other. This is not safe. And you should run a risk register for your business, and you should look at all aspects of the business and say, if that didn't work, or if that wasn't there, or if that person wasn't there, would we be in trouble? And if the answer is yes, you put it on the risk register, and then you work hard to reduce the impact of those risks. Business owner mentality, not recruiter mentality.
I was going to say, so how many businesses would you say, if you had to hazard a wild guess, actually have those things in place?
No one that I've worked with, because I install it.
Yeah.
And even then, they don't always do it. I suggest they do, because everybody is exposed to risks in business.
And what's going through my head is you're talking that takes time and it takes effort.
Yes, it does.
And knowledge. You only know what you know. If you don't know something, you don't know it. Often these things aren't rocket science once you're shown how to do it. And that's what...
It's like a card trick.
It's anything in the world.
Looks magic, doesn't it? But it isn't,
so
once you know.
The old mechanic, there's an analogy that I love using, is you're paying for the knowledge, not the time.
Yeah.
So when you have a great coach or a great mentor, that's what you're paying for, their 30 years of experience or whatever it might be.
Well, we call it the map of the maze, right? Because if you don't have a map of the maze, you're going to go down to a lot of what we call attractive cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
So they look the right thing to do.
I still use that phrase.
Yeah, man. You look to, and then you get in there and you think, oh, there's nowhere to go. You've got to back out and go again. If you get a map of the maze, you take less attractive cul-de-sacs. Right? And that's really important, because attractive cul-de-sacs cost you time and money. And if you make too many of them, they'll cost you credibility with your team as well, because it looks like you don't know what you're doing. So to have a map of the maze, which is essentially what we sell, really, truth be told, you still get the odd cul-de-sac, you still make the odd mistake, of course you do, but it's massively diminished, which means you get to where the pot of gold is so much quicker.
And this is what I've been trying to get at in this conversation, and you've led on perfectly, is without asking you what you do, this is what you do, right? You work with people. You identify. I know you're very careful who you work with. You've got to have the right mindset, which is why I asked about understanding if people are prepared to get there quite early, and you identify.
Well, interestingly, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? We have this program, the breakthrough program, where people sign up and they stay as long as they want, and they take from us 60 or 70 hours of video material, these templates, scripts, yada yada yada. Right, and we used to just sell it to people, so you could just buy it now. We've stopped doing that now. You have to come on one of our growth summits, which is only 97 quid. It's not a lot of money. And then we run them in 2 evenings a week for 1 week in the month. And if you go through that, and this is going to sound, however I say this, it's going to sound terrible. But if we think you're a good match for us, and if you think you're a good match for us as well, then you can come on the breakthrough program. If not, then we're not interested. And we don't chase some people because we know that it wouldn't work for them. And we don't want to sign people up that it's not going to work, which is one of the reasons we don't have a minimum sign-up period. A lot of these people sign up for 6 or 9 months. They don't do that for your benefit. It's for their benefit.
It's their recurring revenue.
Because they know it's not going to work as well as people think it's going to work, but they're stuck, right? Well, we don't do that. You pay every month, you can give a month's notice and leave. And that means
if someone extracts that value in that month,
good for them. Go for it, yeah.
You're happy with that?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, that it's what you buy from us is a change process, of which part of that is knowledge. So, I know how to lose weight. I'm a slave to the gym, as you can see, right? Yeah, right. But I don't do it. So I know how to do it, but I don't do it. Having knowledge isn't enough. You need to apply that knowledge, and that's where people fall down. So what you need is a change program, which is why, going back to the same analogy, things like Weight Watchers work for a period, is that you're in an environment of change, and they've designed a change program. And what we got from our coach back in the 90s was a change program. So she taught us stuff, new things that we didn't know, but she put us into an environment where we had to change, and that's what we sell, really.
I think that's really important, because if you don't equip them with the tools to be able to do it themselves, there's a constant dependency, it falls down. At some point they'll walk away and it won't work. Whereas if you've given them the knowledge and the ability to do it themselves post you, and all they might need is some touch point support, that's invaluable.
It is, yeah. There's an element of discipline. We always say SAG, so we're going to give you support, accountability and guidance. right? And that's a crucial part of running a business. You need those three things, really. Support, because it doesn't always go well. And there's this concept of commercial loneliness, where you're surrounded by people that love you, want you to be a success, but they don't really understand what it's like to be you, man. They got no clue.
Of course they don't.
Down the pub. Oh, it's all right for Mike. He runs his own business. You've got no idea, mate. I don't know about you, but I don't even react to that anymore. Yeah, it's great what I do. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Because it's you know what they're thinking. It's that they're thinking that there's all sorts of breaks and all sorts of benefits, and it's easy, but it's totally the opposite.
Oh God, yeah, they've got no idea.
But interestingly, so I love this, and you talk about we talk about scaling and whatnot. So of the people you're seeing, the founders you're seeing, what's the mentality that you're seeing? Is it more around scaling to sell? Is it more around lifestyle business? Is it a mixture?
Increasingly, I think people are looking towards profit, lifestyle, and wealth businesses. There's a rule. It's a rule of thumb, right, called the 3-4-8 rule. Don't know whether you've come across this. Okay, right. So in recruitment, if you do it properly, it takes about 3 years from a standing start to build a business that's giving you the income that you want. Not the income that you'd like eventually, but enough to have the lifestyle that you want now. It's paying your bills, paying your mortgage, taking you on holiday a couple of times a year, right? It takes another 4 years on top of that to max out your profits, so you've got enough left over to be able to take out and invest privately. So you don't need to sell. You're building your value independently of your business.
Taking as you go.
Taking it as you go. And also, there's a phrase for it called the money bus, right? And also to build a business that doesn't need you in it all the time. So if you're away for a month, it's okay. You don't have to take your laptop. It's fine.
So that's 4 years.
Yeah, so that's 7 in total now,
Yeah.
right? And then if you can get that business to that high level of profitability, and the enemy of profitability is growth, by the way, interestingly.
You've got to invest to grow.
Well, people do invest and don't get a return. So you reach a certain stage and kind of almost freeze it or slow the growth right down, because growth costs money. And that money is your profit.
Yeah.
So if you get to the stage where you're not investing in growth all the time, your profit balloons. And then you run that for 8 years, 3, 4, and 8, right? And you'll be independently wealthy.
It's
That's how it
15
works.
years.
15 years on average. So the first year was 10 years for me. Second one was 17, right? So who knows? But I think that people want to do things too quickly. I want to be in and out by the time I'm 45. Like you said, to do what?
Yeah, to do what?
Right? Much better to have a business that keeps paying you when you don't have to work all the time. But when you do fancy getting back in the fray, it's there for you. Much better that is, in my opinion. But also it's so much easier to build because growth, everything that goes with growth is expensive. There's a concept called a scissor company. Turnover goes up, profits go down.
Yeah.
Very common in recruitment. The numbers of businesses, the number of people that goes up significantly, and yet the profits do not keep pace.
Yeah. Vanity becomes about vanity.
It does, massively so. I'll tell you a little test, which I like. I say to people, recruiters, I say, well, what would you like to do next year? Oh, I'm going to hire 3 more people. I'm going to open an office. I'm going to do this, going to do that, and the other. Wrong answer. Right answer is I'm going to make this much profit.
Yeah, I want to make money. Yeah.
Profit. I want this much profit.
Yeah.
Then it's, well, okay, how can we make that much profit? It could be that you need to hire more people. But if you can, I think you should have an obsession as a business owner, particularly recruitment. Every morning when you wake up, the question is, how can I boost revenues but keep costs the same?
Yeah.
How can I boost revenues?
GP.
Because 80% of that extra revenue straight to the bottom line.
Yeah.
There's 3 ways that you can do that, really, right? But all of those 3 ways will just mean you make more profit. So you organize a business so it's a high profit business,
And you share
not a high
those
growth
3
business.
ways.
Yeah, I'll do that with you. Yeah, sure I will. Yeah. But if you build a business which is high growth, then that's going to cost you a lot of money. And it's always jam tomorrow.
Yeah.
Next year we'll make loads of money, but you don't. Right? Next year we'll make loads of money. No, aim for the profit and keep thinking about efficiency and getting a good return on the investment you're making in your salary, which, by the way, is a really good metric to have if you run a recruitment firm. Divide your salary bill for the month, including commission if you want, into your net profit, right? That gives you a ratio. For every pound of salary, so many pennies of profit.
Yeah.
What happens as you grow? Those pennies of profits diminish. Well, stop it. Don't grow again until you get those pennies of profit back up again.
Have a baseline that you don't go below.
That's right. And therefore you'll avoid becoming a scissor company, right? Anyway, those 3 ways. So the number 1 is every year is audit your costs. Because what happens with costs is they start to creep up. They only go north. You buy stuff that you don't need. And I know this. I use a product called Survey Hero, which is like what's that Survey Monkey?
Oh yeah,
Right.
MailChimp. No,
It is Survey Monkey, I
Survey
think,
Monkey.
right? It's like that. I discovered the other day that as part of Microsoft 365, you get a thing called Microsoft Forms. It's the same as that. So we're spending, I don't know, 50 quid a month or something that we don't need to, because we could just use the Microsoft product that we have. So there's lots of things, particularly around software that you buy that you never use, or subscriptions that you buy that you never use, right? Or things that you've got and you just think, oh, that's the right thing to do. Well, what do I actually make from that? Nothing. So every year, every pound that you save is straight on the bottom line.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two is lift your fees. I know that sounds kooky, but lift your fees. So place higher level people,
Yeah.
fees will be bigger, or just put your fees up. Demonstrate that you add extra value and that people should pay it,
Yeah.
and then have a mechanism to communicate that in a way that people believe it. And the third thing is to increase your efficiency, to make the people that you have more efficient, mainly up through tools and training predominantly. So those are the three group areas. I mean, the detail is how you do that, obviously, but that's what you do. And if you focus on doing that every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year, you will be a hyper efficient business, and you will make more profits than businesses 10 times your size.
And this is interesting because you see there's a lot of solopreneurs rising up, and I see it. And when I've 20 years ago I started out, and I kind of was in accidental, got to small team, but I was a victim of my own success in terms of not being able to scale as I wanted to. You see more of them rise up now, and more people go on their own. And I talk to them, and it's tough. And they say they want a lifestyle business, but you can't have a lifestyle business.
As a solopreneur, it's a dreadful lifestyle. It's okay for a bit. When you first get out there, it's like refreshing. I'll work when I want to work. I'll do what I want to do. I'll keep all the money, and I get that. But then when you have to go on your holiday and your kids and family are having a great time, but you're on the blooming phone or on your laptop. And the other thing I found as well is that you're mentally not there. So physically you're with your family on holiday or sitting having dinner, but you're not there mentally. And I think that is a real shame. So the way in which you have a lifestyle business is you get other people to do things for you.
Yeah.
That's a lifestyle
Build a great
business.
team.
It doesn't have to be big, We've got a model that will help people decide how big their team needs to be. So this is really important, what I'm about to tell you now, right? Okay, so when you run a business, every business owner has potentially five things that they want from it. Number one is income, to be able to have the lifestyle that they want, live in the house they want, go on the holidays, send your kids to private school, whatever it is. Number two is freedom, the freedom to work or not work. And when you're not working, you're not working, right? So you go on your holiday, you're having your holidays. So it's the hours that you want to work in the week plus the weeks that you want to take off as holiday. Number three is choice. When you go to work, you do the things that you like, the things that you are good at, and the things that have the biggest impact on the firm. And number four is wealth. Eventually, to become wealthy enough to be able to say, I don't want to work anymore. It's a choice. You might carry on, but you can leave if you want. There's a fifth, which is legacy. Some people want to leave a legacy, which is what I'm doing now, really, right? But not many people are into that. It's the first four that they want. Right. Well, here's the interesting thing. You can define all of those very precisely. You can define how much money you need. You can work it out, right? So you know the business has to produce that. You can define the hours that you want to work in a week. Do you want to take every other Friday off? Whatever. You can define how many holidays you want a year. You know what it is, right? You can define what you want to do when you get to work. You can write it down. Oh, this is my job description when I get to work. This is what I'm aiming towards. And the wealth managers or IFAs or whatever you use will tell you what your magic number is. It means I need to be worth this much money to be able to say, I'm out of here, right? They'll do a calculation. It's called the magic number, right? So you know what those are. You can translate that into a size business. So you can work out the size business and the structure of it. It's not difficult to do. It's nowhere near as hard as people think. It's one of the first things we do with our clients is to say, well, okay, based on what you've told us, you need a business that looks about like this. Then you know what you're building. You're not building this open-ended thing that you might sell one day, but you almost certainly won't. You are building a very precise thing. Now, you don't have to stop. You get to that point, you might then say, well, I want it to do this now. Well, okay, define it and build the next thing. Or you might say, actually, I'm having a great time. I don't work all the time. I'll make oodles of cash. I'm going to be financially independent in the next 3 years. I think I'll carry on like this.
And the irony of that is that the process, if you're going to eventually sell, you need to go through that anyway. So
Weirdly, yeah, you're absolutely right. If you build a business that's high profit and doesn't need you all the time, somebody will buy that.
there you go.
That's the weird part. Or you can construct a leadership team underneath you that can do an MBO, which is the most popular way of exits these days.
Absolutely. And that structure and that process you go through enables people to set up for either a trade sale, an MBO, or just carrying a lifestyle business.
You can do that.
And recruitment pioneers, let's just talk about that quickly, just understand how that's working and what the plan is.
So the Pioneers is designed for people who are on limited budgets, limited time, and what they want those to transform their business. So it's startup and small businesses really is what it's about. And what we do is we help them build a scalable business. Now, there's only 7 parts of a scalable business, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't, whether you're a lawyer, an accountant, a videographer, whatever it is, you've got 7 components, okay? And what changes is the sophistication of those components. So we call them machines. As the business gets bigger, still the same, but there's more in each of the boxes that go to make up a machine. So what we do is help people decide what the next level of business should be and then build it. And we've got a lot of it's online. Well, all of it's online, but there's a lot of 60 or 70, about 60 hours of video material. We run live workshops. We do Ask Mike, which is my favorite bit, where people ring in and ask me questions. We do group sessions. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we do. And what our aim is to give you 80% of what you need. 20% is from you.
Yeah, perfect. Do you know, it sounds the concept of what you're doing, what comes across, and I'm going to ask you a couple of things because we'll wrap up soon, but where do you get your energy from? You've built 2 businesses, sold them, you've got a coaching program, you're building a legacy business for your kids. I get the passion and why you're doing it, but...
Well, that's where it is. Energy comes from passion. A passion, it's very easy. It's the first thing you think of in the morning, the last thing you think of at night. You want to mix with people that share the same passion. You want to learn about the passion that you have. And so you just have to find your passion. That sounds so cliched, doesn't it? I do apologize, but
I can see it.
I've only ever done my passion since I was 22 when I graduated. First it was IT. I was obsessed with it. Just touch the mic. Sorry about that, guys. Just when I left university, I was obsessed with IT and computing. And, I got a first class honours degree, having got 2 grade E A-levels.
Wow.
Because I didn't care about the A-levels I was doing, but I did care about computer science. And since that, I've always done what I've loved. And so it's not a hardship. I haven't worked a day in my life, really. I just do the things I like and people pay me for it.
And it translates because it translates everything that you do. And I can talk from it as a friend and a client as well. It always comes across. Well, I'm going to hit you with a question, and this is unscripted, this whole thing. So we haven't planned this, but this definitely is unscripted. And I'd like to finish off every episode with this question. What's one thing you wish you'd have known earlier in your career?
Oh, don't put your business above your family. Man, if I could, I'd give most of the money I've earned, pretty much all of it really, to relive the 90s differently. Because,
Really?
Because I think because Mike had died and I didn't know what to do, so I did everything. Right? There's an episode of Star Trek from years ago where there's these creatures and they attack you and they find that light cures it, so Spock becomes blind. Then they realise all the light they need is a candle, right? Because they didn't, and it's like that. Really, you think you've got to do all of this stuff and you really don't. You've got to be well organised, disciplined. You've got to learn to say no a lot about offers and things. Don't get sucked into the shiny things, the magpies that drag you over. By the way, if anyone's interested, go onto Google and search on Johnny Ive, Jony Ive, Steve Jobs Focus. It's the best 63 seconds you'll ever invest because he talks about focus, and it's just focus and don't worry about the rest. Most of the stuff you do doesn't matter anyway, quite frankly. Just do the stuff that matters. Then you can still put a lot of time and effort and mental space into your family, which is what I should have done. I now do it with my grandchildren. How sad is that?
It's brilliant.
I give my grandchildren the attention I should have given my own children.
And it's a decision I made, and a major part of the reason I didn't grow and scale, because I watched my dad sacrifice it. I see loads of people who've sacrificed health, everything, and happiness. I wanted to be there for my kids, so I've gone the other way.
Good choice.
And I've just done, mate, and I live by that. And
Good
I've got
choice.
my pink little bracelet my daughter made me, and I go to school. We could carry on talking for hours, as we normally do. This is phenomenal. I think what's come across is the value and the information has been phenomenal here. I'm just going to say, if anyone does want to reach out and find out more about Recruitment Pioneers or Flair, what's the best way of doing that?
Okay, well, the best thing is to connect with me on LinkedIn. We produce a ton of free content, lots and lots of stuff that you can absorb. Even if you haven't got 2 pennies to rub together, we've got something for you. And then if you do want to engage with us, just connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's have a conversation. It's as easy as that.
Mike Ames, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. And what I'd like to do is maybe just revisit this in 6-12 months. I know you've got some fantastic stuff in the pipeline.
Delighted to do
Revisit
that.
it and see how things are moving.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Paul. It really has. I was looking at the time. You may have heard that grandfather clock going off. It's there. I cannot believe that's been an hour.
I can't either.
Man, that's been just the quickest hour I've ever had. So thank you for inviting me on.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers, Mike.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. I really hope you enjoyed it. First and foremost, we always try to add value to our audience, be it a founder looking to scale or a leader looking to progress up the chain in the agency world. And if we can do this in a way that is easy to watch and entertaining, then for me, that is job done. Once again, thanks for listening, and until next time.